Hello friends, for today's video I'm going to be reacting to the Goodreads Choice Award nominees. I just recently did a predictions video and I have my full list of predictions. I am specifically most invested in the adult fantasy section, so that's what I was predicting, and I attempted to predict every single one that would appear on the nominations. One that I completely forgot to mention but that I had in my head was the new Adrian Young book, and some of you mentioned it and I thought, yeah, I think that one's probably going to be there too. The rest of these I'm going to be going through and checking off as I see them. Hopefully there will be a lot of them there, but if not, that's also really fun because then I'll maybe be introduced to books that I wasn't expecting, or maybe there are books that weren't as hyped that it's actually exciting to see on the nominations, because hopefully that'll mean more eyes on books that aren't as popular, which is probably not going to happen, but that would be fun if it did. I haven't looked at these at all yet. I have my iPad down here, so I'm going to be looking down a lot. And let me know which ones ended up being completely a surprise to you and which ones you were very much expecting. Okay, looking at the fantasy section. Now I have to just wait for it to load. All right. Joe Hill! Oh, I already have one that I didn't predict would be on there. I guess I stupidly assumed that that would be considered horror, which is my own fault because I don't actually know anything about. Hold on, I'm already, because my iPad is showing me a bunch of them at once. Usually if I'm looking at my phone, it's a little bit more, you scroll and you see about one at a time. Hold on, what is this list? Why is it, oh, this can't, is this all of them? This is all of them. Okay, I have many thoughts. The one that is making me be overly dramatic at the moment is Thief of Night. Do you remember months ago, I made a video about what I feel is almost something that basically publishing is being a little too overt, or you could even argue retailers are being a little too overt with trying to push certain works that actually aren't that popular, or maybe people aren't that hyped about them, but they are insisting that they are. I did a whole video about this, and the thing that the focus was for that video was Thief of Night. Sure, lots of people enjoyed the first one. I'm not saying nobody liked it necessarily, but it wasn't necessarily the book that people were losing their minds over the year it came out, and so there was a decent amount of drop-off. Some people weren't necessarily as looking forward to the second book as they had been before they'd read the first one. But I was saying, I just feel that it's disingenuous to present something as a hyped book talk book that I don't actually think was that hyped. And I was pointing out at the time, I was saying, I bet that we're going to see this put on more lists, because I wonder if there's something where, of course, like at bookstores, sometimes certain books, the retailer will be asked to put certain books in the window or on displays or face out or those sorts of things. I think you can even pay more to have certain books face out, so of course it catches more people's attention, there's more chance of them buying it. So I feel like there's something similar going on with this, because how is Thief of Night on here? I feel really bad a little bit that I'm hitting this so hard, because I'm basically saying, oh, how dare it be here, it doesn't deserve it, which isn't necessarily what I mean, because I don't know, unless I'm completely off here, and tons of people have been picking it up, and you know what, let's click on it. How many people have even read this book? It has less than 4,000 ratings, which I know a big part of it is how many people put it on their want to read shelf, and I suppose people have been putting this on their want to read shelf because of the fact that, you know, it's been so long since the first book came out. I'm sure I'm not the only person who's gonna be like, what? Over that. Anyway, okay. Let's go through the rest of them, shall we? Let's check off the ones that I had. So we knew the R.F. Kuang book was gonna be there. That is a surprise, I think, to no one. We were pretty sure Wind and Truth was gonna be on there. I even noted that I didn't expect necessarily Emberdark to be there for sure, because of the fact that Wind and Truth was probably gonna be on there, and the Year of the Secret Projects, there was only one of the secret projects, even though arguably some of them were more popular than some of the other things that came out. So it doesn't really surprise me that only Wind and Truth is there. Also the Raven Scholar, I was pretty sure that one was going to be there. The Devils, of course that was going to be there. Is it? Okay, good. A Drop of Corruption was there. I was going to say, if A Drop of Corruption's not there, I'm going to be a little upset by that. Brigands and Bread Knives, we knew that that was going to be there as well. The Strength of the Few, yep. Bury Our Bones. Yes, indeed. Where's... No, Emily Wilde. Okay, I thought for sure Emily Wilde was going to be on there. I guess not. All right, Watermoon. So Watermoon was one that I wasn't sure. I had a feeling that it was going to show up. I just didn't know if it was going to show up under the adult fantasy section. I didn't know if it'd be listed as fantasy romance or just fiction, because I have seen it on certain lists be considered fantasy romance, and even sometimes in the marketing it's more that way. So I had it there, but I also wasn't sure it'd be here. But I had a feeling it would show up somewhere, and I guess it did show up here, in fact. Red City, I was pretty sure that would show up. Hemlock and Silver. Okay, I had that one as well. The new J. Kristoff one isn't here. Okay, that was one where I thought, I know a lot of people in the bookish circles I'm in are really excited about that one, but I don't actually know if it's got as much mainstream appeal. It feels really hyped because of everybody I see talking about it, but that just kind of goes to show how much we're oftentimes in little bubbles, because I had a feeling it wasn't maybe going to be as big as other people were expecting. But anyway, so The River Has Roots, I predicted that would be on here, but I predicted that would be on here as a, I'm pretty sure this is the one that would have caught me by surprise had I not been actively trying to figure out things that weren't necessarily as much on my radar. And I do want to read that one. I saw it at my bookstore the other day, a local bookstore, and it's tiny. It's very, very short. So I have seen kind of an uptick, I would say, in shorter works over the last few years, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. I think it's good when authors and publishers recognize that books sometimes either don't need that much page time, or sometimes it's good to let them have plenty of page time. I think where we get frustrated is when we feel like they're forced into a certain page count, whether it be longer or shorter, for the sake of sales, as opposed to for the sake of the story. So I am hopeful that that one packs a punch, and it had all the time that it needed. Alchemy of Secrets. Okay, I was pretty sure this one would show up. I just didn't know if it would show up under fantasy. I thought maybe it'd be fantasy romance. I haven't read it, but just kind of Stephanie Garber's known and read by a lot of romance readers, or YA romance readers, I would say. Fantasy romance. So I wasn't sure about that one, but it is, in fact, in this section. I think those are all the ones. Oh, I forgot to actually cross out the R.F. Kuang one. So a few that I thought would be on here that are not. I thought the Cassandra Clare book would be on here. So I was incorrect about that. There was a few that I wasn't really super sure. I did have the Incandescent. I'm realizing I can cross that one off as well. So there's a few I missed. I was hopeful that I would only have up to 2 misses. And you know what's funny? I even started this by saying, oh, I think I missed the Adrienne Young book. And that's not even here anyway. So out of the 20, I'll count how many of them I did predict. I predicted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is it really exciting watching me count? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I missed 6? Is that right? Oh, no, I got the Everlasting. I wasn't sure if the Everlasting would be considered fantasy romance as well, just because I've heard and seen in the synopsis a little bit of emphasis on the romance. But that one only just came out, so I don't have too much information about it, and regardless, I try not to have too much information anyway. I already forgot. What did I say? 14? So that would be 15. So I got 15. I missed 5? That still feels high. Okay, let's write out the ones I missed. I missed the Joe Hill one. So, Joe Hill. And, the Sirens? I don't know that one. So, I actually am happy. Maybe it's actually really popular and I'm oblivious. Hold on. Okay, it's really popular. So it has almost 42,000 ratings. So, whoops. But the Sirens. Okay, I was going to say, oh, I'm happy because it brought something to my attention that I wouldn't have known about anyway, which is kind of true, but it's just because I'm in my own little bubble over here and I just missed that one. Society of Unknowable Objects. I think maybe some of you mentioned this one. Okay, The Book of Doors, it's by that same author, and I think that one did have a nomination in the past as well. So the Society, this one doesn't have very many ratings though. It's at 6,500. I mean, that's a lot for just having come out this year. I should check the release date. Okay, it came out in August. Okay, that's a decent amount for having only just come out in August. But not as obviously huge as some of the other ones on the list. So that's exciting. I will want to check this one out. So there we go. There is one that got brought to my attention that I hadn't seen really before. I am surprised. I thought we would get the Mark Lawrence one. I thought that one might show up. There was a few on here, but the ones that didn't, I think of the ones that didn't show up, I'm most surprised by Emily Wilde. I'm most surprised by the J. Kristoff one, not because I have any knowledge of that series really from personal reading experience, just because I just thought it would be there. And I guess I am kind of surprised that the Cassandra Clare one didn't show up. I think it's kind of odd that the Cassandra Clare one didn't show up and the Holly Black one did, when I think the Cassandra Clare one was decently liked. And I don't think that Book of Night was that decently liked. Anyway, okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, and A Resistance of Witches. Let's see this one. So this one came out in July, and it's already well, it's not quite at 11,000, but it'll probably be at 11,000 soon. It has a pretty high average rating as well. I don't usually like seeing that stuff ahead of time, but it's higher than the last few that I clicked on, so I just happened to notice. A Resistance of Witches. Do I know, has this author written other things? Let's see. Is this their debut? I guess maybe it is. That's exciting. All right. Okay. So I can easily get through those 5 because I wanted to try to read basically everything on the Goodreads nominees, and those were the only 5 that were on my radar, really. I thought I was going to have to read through a lot of series if I wanted to get through all of them. Unless, is the Joe Hill one part of a series? It doesn't look like it. Okay. That one came out that one only just came out in October too, so, okay. Anyway, alright, I'm surprised. There's some things that showed up that I wasn't expecting. I want to know. I asked before what was the thing that you were the most surprised by, and then, like, what was something that you weren't expecting to be on there, and what was something you knew would be on there. I kind of want to know what your snubs are now, though. What's something that you were thinking, I can't believe that this didn't show up? This is a kind of surprising list. Here's what I'll say. This list, to me, seems more focused on first, except for Wind and Truth, obviously. It seems more focused on either only 2 in, or first in series, or standalones. Because, let's see, the Drop of Corruption is only a second book. Brigands and Bread Knives is kind of a second book. Let's see. Strength of the Few, second book. Looks like Thief of Night, second book. So they seem to have dropped off after a book 2. Like I said, with the exception of Wind and Truth. But it doesn't seem like they have very many book 3s in series, book 4s in series. So that's kind of interesting. I've always said that I kind of like the idea of keeping the nominees, having different categories for a number of things. First off, I think it would be interesting to do sequels. And then I also think it would be good if we actually had nominees that had, from this amount to this amount of average ratings. Not average ratings. Ratings, just in general. That didn't make any sense. Let me rephrase. If you had a certain amount of ratings. So, for example, the books that are between, a few hundred all the way up to 5,000 are in their own bracket. Everything between that and 10 to 15. I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not saying it's literally these exact numbers that I'm recommending. But then you have this other one, and then you have everything above that. So you have 3, and it's basically the unknowns, the people that are on the bookish internet's interest, but maybe not as mainstream. And then you have the mainstream ones. And you had those compete against each other. Then I think it'd be fun to have the ones that don't have as much attention ahead of time, that are maybe debuts or by lesser known authors. It gives people a lot more awareness about what maybe they didn't have a heads up about, and then they can check those out and they can show some love to those authors. And also, what could be kind of fun is if they also added in a middle of the year thing where they had the book that was from the lower end, the book that was in the middle, and then the book that was at the higher end. If they had the winners of each of those, about mid-year, they then pitted them against each other, because that's given people more time to pick up the lesser known ones. They're the underdogs, and then the underdogs have to compete against the really uber popular, and maybe the really uber popular one would always win and this would be pointless, but it could be kind of a fun way to just bring more awareness to the lesser known books. And it would still hype up the ones that are really well known, so it's not like you're excluding all of the people that maybe don't have as much time to read, like some of the really intense bookworms that are out there, like a lot of us. I think that could be fun. Anyway, I am surprised. I couldn't tell when I made my list. I'm like, I feel like I'm covering so many that it almost felt like cheating to have so many things that I'm like, this might show up too, this one might also show up, and I still missed 5. So that's not a very good score, but hey, you know, I'll have to check some of these out. Let's pop over to some of the other ones just for fun. So let's look at science fiction. I want to see what's there. I'm usually so out of the loop with sci-fi. Let me know if you have a favorite sci-fi that you think that more people should read, and then also just based off of my taste, what you've gathered of my tastes, are there any where you're thinking, I really genuinely think you would love this, please read this book? I'm looking at these and I recognize a lot of the covers, and there's one in particular that I remember having on anticipated releases, Luminous specifically. Okay, it doesn't have that many ratings, but still, that's one that I recognize, of course. There's the Adrian Tchaikovsky, that's not a surprise there. Then there's this one down here, looked familiar, which I know you don't know what I'm referring to when I say this one down here. These memories do not belong to us. I've seen that one around before. It's kind of interesting. The sci-fi ones don't have very many. I think sci-fi is not as hyped of a genre right now. It's not as trendy as fantasy. But maybe I'll have to dip my toes a little bit more into the sci-fi section and see what they have. But with these, that'll be on the screen, let me know which ones you think I should check out. Let's pop over to fantasy romance. What if they romantasy, whatever. I was gonna say, what if they did put Emily Wilde here. Emily Wilde wasn't here the last 2 years. Decide. Sorry, I realized it as I was about to click on it. All right, if you're gonna put the first 2 in fantasy, why would you move it then for the 3rd year? It's not like the 3rd one suddenly became only about falling in love or something. I don't know. I mean, interestingly, I kind of feel like it makes more sense if they had been there from the start, or if they just all weren't there. But to have it here now is kind of funny. Anyway, I do recognize a lot of these. A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping was adorable. The Night and the Moth. Okay, The Night and the Moth I didn't put, I don't think, on my list because I thought it might end up here. And I was correct about that one. If you are somebody who prefers a little bit more of a blend of fantasy and romance and less emphasis on romance, I do think The Night and the Moth blended it a little bit more. I just didn't necessarily love it anyway, but a lot of people have really been liking that one, so there's a chance that you might like it as well. Let's see. Okay, Rebecca Ross, sure. I was expecting that one to be here. Onyx Storm. Yeah, that's not a surprise. I'm kind of amused, too, at Silver Elite. What's the average rating on this one right now? Because I feel like I've only seen 4.1? Okay, I've seen people... I've seen people that are talking about how, I guess I have the unpopular opinion of having had fun with this book. It's 4.1! It's not the unpopular opinion to like it. Anyway, I know, again, it just kind of shows the niches we're in and the bubbles we're in, that is some people's perception. Most of these I would recognize, I would say, for the most part. There's a few that I don't know as well. Shield of Sparrows. Wow, that's a lot. Is this a re-release or something? No, it says it came out in May. Because sometimes books, sometimes books, when they get new covers and new editions on Goodreads, when it updates, it will update the release date of the edition and not the actual original release date, so it can be kind of confusing. So I can't tell, because that's a really large amount. 212,000 ratings at 4.4. That's very high. I want to see how high Onyx Storm is. Hold on, let's compare. Onyx Storm, which I did not read, and I don't plan to. Onyx Storm, has 1.5 million at 4.2. Okay. Some of these though I don't know as much. I thought, oh, maybe this is a slightly lesser known one for fantasy romance. And then these have hundreds of thousands. Okay, On Wings of Blood has close to 68,000. What else? This is a good question. Do you think Alchemist will beat Onyx Storm? Or do you think Onyx Storm will win? I mean, I know currently it only has 73,000, but people have been really shouting about that book. I don't know. There's also, of course, a lot of other aspects to that book that are discussed and reasons people don't want to pick it up. So there's a lot to it, but that would be one that I would say maybe might come in second if anything is going to come close to Onyx Storm. I thought Direbound might be the one that, I don't know. A Wolves of Ruin novel. Okay, I thought it was trying to say that it was a sequel. It's not. It's the first book. But, man, all of these have such high average ratings. It's almost like we use a completely different rating scale for different genres. Let's pop over to YA. So we're kind of still sticking with sci-fi and fantasy. Young adult, fantasy, and sci-fi. Okay, this is where I feel like I'll have fun discovering books. I read A Forgery of Fate. I read The Floating World. I don't think any of the rest of these. So, a lot of things. I did want to read Breath of the Dragon. Is it Fonda Lee, right? Fonda Lee and Shannon Lee. That's correct. Yeah, I was interested in picking that one up, so I'm hoping to still get around to that. But a lot of the rest of these, I've kind of seen or heard about them, but I haven't checked them out. Anyway, okay, I don't know a lot of these. Similar to what I was saying before about sci-fi, same can be applied for YA and fantasy romance. If there are ones that you think I would like, let me know. I'd be happy to check out your recommendations. I guess let's pop over to debuts, because I think debuts are fun, because a lot of times you get books that aren't as well known. Are they going to consider Alchemist a debut? Let's find out. I think Watermoon's a debut, right? Is it going to be there? Okay. Oh, yeah, there it is. There's Alchemist. Okay. I mean, I guess it's competing against debuts from other genres, so maybe there's a chance that it won't just dominate this area. But I don't know. I feel like the people that, even if you haven't read Alchemist, the people that liked the fan fiction version, I would expect are going to come out and show their support, but I don't know. Perhaps they will not. I don't know a lot of these. A lot of these look more fiction adjacent. A Resistance of Witches is there. Okay, so that one's kind of representing fantasy within the debut category. I wanted to check out horror because I wanted to see if Buffalo Hunter was there, because that's one I'm really quite interested in. And I wanted to see if T. Kingfisher showed up here as well, because I wasn't sure if she would have something in fantasy and in here. Okay, there's a Grady Hendrix, not surprising. Buffalo Hunter is here, which I was expecting. Of course, Stephen King is going to have something in here. The Bewitching, I did just read that recently. Any of the books that I've read, I'll have reviews for linked in case you'd like to check them out. But no T. Kingfisher, so that's not too surprising, because back to my comment about once they start getting into third in series, then I feel like that's less of a chance of showing up, and that's true for the series that she has that has been being considered in the past as horror, so that's not too surprising there. Anyway, I was most interested in seeing the fantasy and fantasy-related categories, which we've basically covered at this point. Are you surprised at the nominees this year? Or are you not that surprised? Are there ones that surprised you, and then when you thought about it, you're like, actually, yeah, that makes sense? I'm a little surprised at some of these. I'm a little surprised, but I also am interested in checking all of them out. I plan to read all of the ones from the fantasy category. If I had to vote currently of the 15 that I'm aware of, I would give it to Bury Our Bones. That's the one that would get my vote. I really enjoyed that. I was looking at a lot of the new releases I picked up this year, and that is among one of my favorites. I know it's popular. I know it's a well-known name in the fantasy genre, but I thought that book was quite well written. I thought the thematic elements were really well executed, and there's kind of layers and layers and layers to them. And the experience of reading it, too, is not quite like a lot of the other things that I've picked up. Not just because it's utilizing a narrative style that's not always present, but because there's just something about how well she kind of transported you to the characters and what they're experiencing. I thought it was quite exquisite. So that one currently has my vote, but I'm going to try to read more of the nominees before officially voting in the first round. Anyway, I would love to know what has your vote of the ones that are there, and what's something also that you were pleasantly surprised to see was there. And then maybe in a really mean way, what's something that you were pleasantly surprised to see wasn't there? Maybe that's too mean. You don't have to answer that. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll have a few more Goodreads videos coming out, so if it's something you're interested in, be on the lookout. But anyway, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later.